What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I'll be setting up my fantasy cruncher for the Thursday night football game between the Jaguars and the Jets. I'll be setting up for the largest field GPP on FanDuel here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange my columns. I've got a quick view saved with the things I want to see in the middle of the screen, those being ownership projections, my projection, exposure cap, and then how much I get of players once I have run a crunch. While you're coming in, by the way, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification button if you want to get alerts when our shows go live. We've got a lot of great content on this channel. All right, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sort by projection, and I'm just going to remove everybody from my player pool who has a projection of 0. The reason I'm doing this is because when I make groups later, now these players will not show up and I won't have to sift through them to find the players I do want to add to groups. All right, with those players removed, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the MVP tab. I'm going to set an exposure cap 20%. That means I can't get more than 20% of any player in the MVP tab. Not a magic number. That's a good starting place. And then sometimes I adjust on different slates. And you can also adjust individual players if you want to. In this column, you just click on the number and you can adjust that number individually for some players. All right, next I'm going to go into advanced options. And I'll be working in 2 tabs here, the general tab and the groups tab. Starting in the general tab, unique players per lineup. In a 150 set, I'm going to leave this at 1 unique player per lineup. So my lineups can be just 1 player apart from each other. If you're making 40 or fewer lineups, I would set this to 2 unique players for the purpose of diversifying your lineup set. Salary cap, I'm not going to set a minimum. I will set a maximum just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups. If I'm lucky enough to win, I want to win a lot of money. So I don't want those lineups that are going to be duplicated 2,000 times and barely win any money, even if they win. I'm going to avoid those lineups and try to have more unique lineups. So I'm setting a little salary cap, one of the easier ways to avoid the most duplicated lineups. Offensive players versus defense, the default is set to 2. I'm going to change that to 4 so I can get 4 players from one team against just the defense of the opposing team. Global exposure cap, I'm going to leave at 100%. I already changed the exposure cap in the MVP spot specifically, but in the util, I will allow up to 100% of any player. Randomness, I'm going to set at 30%. If you want more control over your lineups, set this number lower. You could use 10%. I know some people use 0% because they want to have complete control over their lineups. I don't need to have complete control over my lineup, so I think 30% is a good number for me. Minimum projection included in calculation. The default is set to 3. I'm going to leave that at 3. If there's a player I want in my player pool who projects for fewer than 3 fantasy points, I will give them a manual boost in their projection to get above 3 fantasy points, get them into the player pool. And then players from each team max, I'm going to leave at 4 so I can have 4 players from one team against one of the opposing team. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, 0 risk because it's all free. And now is the perfect time to sign up because you'll get access to the tools for Thursday night football, Saturday football, and Sunday football if you sign up today. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. All right, next I'm going to go to the groups tab. I'm going to start with a group. Zach Wilson at MVP. Going to make him my key player. And then I'm going to go ahead and add all of these Jets pass catchers to a secondary group. Sort by position. For the Jets, I'm only going to include Michael Carter from the running backs. Even Carter not as involved in the passing game when Zach Wilson's at quarterback, but he has had at least one game where he got, I believe, 7 targets. Can spike an upside in the passing game, so I will include him. All right, now I'm going to rename this group. Wilson MVP. And for both of the quarterbacks on this slate, I think they have some rushing upside. They both have scored, a handful of touchdowns in their short careers. And they both run for more than 10 yards per game. So they have shown some upside in the rushing game. So I'm going to allow for just for lineups that have just one pass catcher in them. So I'm going to, in the group rules, I'm going to require one. So I'm saying if any key player used, so that's Zach Wilson in the MVP spot, use at least one player from this group. So I'm requiring at least one pass catcher in every lineup that has Zach Wilson at MVP. On top of that, in general, I'd prefer to have multiple pass catchers when I have Zach Wilson at MVP. So I'm going to give boosts to his pass catchers as well to make it more likely that I get to multiple in these lineups. All right, next group I'm going to make is a Trevor Lawrence MVP group. So I'm going to find Trevor at MVP, make him my key player. And then same thing, going to add all these Jaguars pass catchers to a secondary group. And I'm going to include Travis Etienne for the Jaguars. That'll do it. And then same thing that I did with Zach Wilson. Going to give boost to these Jaguars pass catchers. All right. Now I'm going to make a group that is Wilson flex. So I'm going to find Zach Wilson in the flex, make him my key player. Same thing, add all these Jets pass catchers to a secondary group. Again, including Michael Carter. Then I'm also going to add them in the MVP. And you don't really need to bother with the ones who don't project very well since there is no salary multiplier. Probably not getting to them in the MVP spot anyway. All right, so we'll leave it at that. And here I'm not going to give any kind of boost. I'm just going to say if I've got Wilson in the flex, I'm requiring at least one pass catcher. I think, at least for now, for my first run, I'm actually not going to make a group for Trevor Lawrence. I did on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, without the PPR, it makes it even more likely that Trevor Lawrence could get there on the ground. Like he could be optimal in the flex without bringing along any pass catchers. You do need at least one player from each team. I think it's certainly plausible that Trevor Lawrence is the guy you need, even without bringing along a pass catcher. Just because he does have some rushing upside, could spread the ball around. They might not score a lot of touchdowns. So I think that it is plausible for Trevor Lawrence to be optimal in the flex without any pass catchers from the Jaguars. I'm going to allow it for now. I don't want to see it in a ton of lineups, but if I see it in a handful in a 150 set, I'd be okay with that. All right, now I'm going to crunch out 150 lineups. And we'll see what they look like. Okay, so first lineup we see is Zach Wilson in the MVP spot with multiple pass catchers. That's what I like to see. This lineup correlates just fine for me. Second lineup, Trevor Lawrence in the MVP, multiple pass catchers, including Travis Etienne there. That one looks good to me. Third line. Okay, so here's one where we get Trevor Lawrence in the flex without any pass catchers. Again, I'm okay with it in some lineups. I don't want to see a ton of it, but if I see a handful of these in a 150 set, I'd be okay with it. Otherwise, we got Zach Wilson with multiple pass catchers. Bam Knight in the MVP. Everything looks good there. Here's another one with Trevor Lawrence in the flex without any pass catchers. All right, Trevor Lawrence at MVP with multiple. Zach Wilson at MVP with multiple pass catchers. In general, I'd say these are okay. Here's Trevor in the MVP spot with just one pass catcher. Again, I'm okay with that in some lineups. Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore looks good. Another Trevor. Let me see here. How many of these am I getting to? Yeah, I'm getting to a few more than I'd like. I might go back and change that Actually, before I do that, though, I'm going to adjust my player exposures. So now the second thing I do, so I look at the player cards, see, am I getting well correlated lineups? And then I'm also going to look at individual positions and see if I'm getting to exposures out. And I've got filter on how much I'm getting to different players. So here you can see Trevor Lawrence more expensive than Zach Wilson by quite a bit. They project about the same. Zach Wilson actually projects slightly better. Makes sense. I'm going to get more Zach Wilson than Trevor Lawrence. Maybe I want a little bit more Trevor Lawrence in my lineup, so I'll give him a little bit of a projection boost. Getting to a lot of Travis Etienne, fair amount of Bam Knight, only 14% Michael Carter. Maybe I want a little bit more there. Again, not making these actual player decisions right now, just showing you the general process, what I might think. I'll be doing more research before I make this decision. Usually I actually build these lineups in the last hour and a half before the slate after we get the inactives news. JaMychal Hasty, if he's going to be 0.3% owned and he's just 7,500, I look at that and I think he's a direct backup for Travis Etienne. He's probably involved in the game no matter what. And then if Travis Etienne gets hurt, JaMychal Hasty is going to be the guy. You're really going to want him at 7,500. So I'd like to get some JaMychal Hasty in my lineups. Going to give him a little bit of a boost. Probably don't need these other guys. I'll leave them out for now. Wide receivers, you can see I'm not getting to a lot of the expensive wide receivers. Maybe I want a little bit more of these guys, so I'll give them a little boost. Not getting too much Marvin Jones. Maybe I'd like a little bit more there. If I give him a projection of 6.4. Now he projects worse than Corey Davis. They're the same price. Probably going to get less Marvin Jones than Corey Davis. Of course, there's a possibility that some lineups are Jets onslaughts and need one player from the Jags, and Marvin Jones could fit there when Corey Davis won't. Might happen in some lineups, but I'm going to project him a little bit worse than Corey Davis. Elijah Moore, you can see I'm going to get less Marvin Jones probably than Elijah Moore because he's more expensive and Elijah Moore projects better. Jamal Agnew, currently not in the player pool because he projects for fewer than 3 fantasy points. Give him a little bit of a boost. Same thing, Braxton Berrios. Not getting to a lot of Evan Ingram. Maybe give him a little bit of a boost, get some more of him in the player pool. Not getting much CJ Uzoma, currently not in the player pool. Maybe I'll give him a little bit of a boost. See if he can get into the lineup set. And for now, I'm going to leave out Mannertz and Arnold. Getting to a lot of the kickers. Not getting much of the defenses. Maybe I'll give a little bit of a boost to these defenses. Crunch it out, see what happens. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, zero risk because it's all free. And now is the perfect time to sign up because you'll get access to the tools for Thursday night football, Saturday football, and Sunday football if you sign up today. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. All right, so now looking again at the correlations. Trevor Lawrence right away, multiple pass catchers, looks good. Zach Wilson, multiple pass catchers, looks good. Zach Wilson in the flex with Garrett Wilson and Michael Carter, looks good. Wilson with Moore. Trevor Lawrence with Ingram. Lawrence with multiple. Lawrence in the MVP with multiple looks good. Zach Wilson in the MVP with multiple. These all look pretty good to me. Currently not seeing. So now we've got Trevor Lawrence in the MVP with just one pass catcher. Again, I'm fine with that in some lineups. My preference, if I were just doing one lineup, if we're just doing 20 lineups, I might require 2. But in a 150 set, I would be happy getting to 5 or 10 Trevor Lawrence in the MVP with just one pass catcher because he does have some rushing upside. So in general, I'd say these ones look okay. Looking closer at these Trevor Lawrence in the flex lineups. Here's one where he's just naked, no receivers there. Here's another one. Most of them, though, seem to have, we're still running into a few. All right, so the next thing I would do, if I'm getting into too many of those, I'd go back and create that group where I say Lawrence in the flex. Go find him. Trevor Lawrence in the flex, make him a key player. Add all these Jaguars pass catchers to the secondary group. Including at the MVP spot. All right, I think I got all of the relevant ones. And then now, if I'm still okay with some lineups that have Trevor Lawrence in the flex without any pass catchers, I'm going to click this only apply plus minus adjustments button, and then go ahead and give a little boost to these pass catchers in those lineups. All right, now let's try that. All right, looking at those again. Trevor Lawrence in the flex. See, now I'm getting to a lot more Trevor Lawrence. It's kind of an indirect result or an unintentional result of giving those boosts to those pass catchers. Makes all those lineups project a little bit better when I've got Trevor Lawrence in the flex. One way to obviously correct that, if you don't want to have 54% Trevor Lawrence, whatever I have here, you could just go and reduce his projection. Then you get those boosts, but it's on a lower projection, and you'll still get the correlations. But looking at these, we got Trevor Lawrence in the flex, multiple pass catchers. I just need at least one. Here's Christian Kirk. Does he have at least one in all of them? Even though I didn't require it, it's looking like he does have at least one pass catcher in every single one of these lineups, which I don't mind either. I said I'll allow it to have just Trevor with no pass catchers, and I am fine. Okay, so here's one where we get Trevor Lawrence. So again, I'm okay with having that in a few lineups in a 150 set. I just don't want that to be the majority. I'm okay with this lineup. We've got Zach Wilson with multiple pass catchers. Trevor Lawrence naked looks fine to me. Pause. No. Okay, here's another one. Okay. In general, I'm liking these lineups. No issues here. I'm not going to go through and do, 30 of these crunches for you. I think I'm going to call it good, but I'll just go through one more time, show you, okay, defenses, now I'm at 16, 18%. That looks good. Kickers, looks good. Tight ends, not getting much CJ Uzoma. Maybe I'd want more. I give him a little bit of a boost if I do. I'm not sure yet if I want more than, one share of CJ Uzoma. He's only projected for 1.1% ownership, so maybe I do. So maybe I'd give him, a little bit of a boost. But again, I just do this incrementally until I get to exposure levels that I like. Make sure that they all correlate well enough. Still not getting much Garrett Wilson here. Maybe I'd give him a little bit of a boost. Christian Kirk, same thing, et cetera, et cetera. And I just go through position by position, looking at the players. How much am I getting of them? How much do I want? Compare their projection to the players who have similar salaries. What do I need to do to their projection to get to the number that I want? Using the other players kind of as a guide for how much you should give boost to the projection. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Good luck. Hope you can find some success tomorrow night using this or a similar process.